Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight, the show where I put the spotlight on a new album in progressive rock or related genres that I've been really loving and want to recommend to you, all of you that have most likely similar taste as me if you're watching my channel. I'm a big fan of progressive rock back from the 70s, and in today's modern era I like tinges of, modern prog metal and modern alternative and things that sound fresh and vibrant. And I think I've got a great one for you guys today. This year I've been doing less new album spotlights because I'm really focusing in on the albums that I think are especially strong and are going to factor into my year-end list of favorite albums of the year. I always do a year-end tournament of my 16 favorite albums from the year. So if I feel like an album is worthy to make that short list, in that conversation of top 16 albums of the year, I'm going to try to spotlight it in its own review to give it its own space. And that's the case today for Brass Camel and their self-titled record. This is a band from Vancouver, Canada. This is their third record. Their first record was called Brass in 2022. Their second record, Camel, in 2025, just last year. So it's a quick turnaround for this self-titled record. It's kind of funny that the first record is Brass, then Camel. Now put those two together and you get Brass Camel. And this is a fantastic statement by the band, and I'm really excited for the band's future and how they're really making their mark in the progressive rock scene. And I'd say that prog rock is really only one of the tricks in their tool bag, so to speak. They're not like a full-blown retro progressive rock band like a lot of the bands that I mentioned here, Flower King, Spock's Beard, Big Big Train. All of those bands really harken back to the 70s style sound of progressive rock, the Yes, the Genesis. They have a very specific style to them, where I feel like Brass Camel definitely has some of that influence, but they bring in this kind of funk rock aesthetic, this modern kind of alternative spirit and punk aesthetic, and this kind of art rock vibe that brings a lot of different elements together that I particularly like and creates a stew of incredible 70s inspired music that sounds fresh and vibrant in today's musical landscape. And this album has 10 tracks on it, each one ranging from, close to 4 minutes up to 5 to 6 minutes. So shorter tracks. Their previous album, which I did a review on and featured heavily on the channel last year, Camel, had a lengthier opening track and ending track, so they kind of had these two mini epics on the record, and the shorter tracks were sandwiched in the middle. But on this record, every track is kind of in that shorter range, and they're trying to give you shorter statements, but there's still a lot packed into each track. They really are experts at finding ways to make a 5-minute song feel like it has enough ideas to fill 20 minutes in anyone else's record. So there's plenty of prog goodness to enjoy in this record, plenty of cool funk rock feel. I compare them a lot to Frank Zappa, honestly, because I think Frank Zappa had this kind of funk edge to his music, especially in the late 60s, 70s. And he had a similar kind of aesthetic and zaniness and humor that I think Brass Camel brings to the forefront as well. I'm sure Rush is also a big inspiration for them, coming from Canada. How can it not be? Hear a bit of Yes in their mixture as well. And just all kinds of great 70s influences, even like Stevie Wonder and more funky stuff of that sort of a nature too. And it all blends together into this great stew. Another artist that definitely comes to mind is Queen. There's some big like pomp rock, arena rock feel to a lot of these tracks as well. And I just really adore it. I think the band have really streamlined their sound into a really great package here. It's a fairly short record. It's 40 minutes or so long. But I think that's the perfect bite-sized chunk for this music to inhabit. I think it harkens back to kind of the classic album format of the 70s, but I think it really packs a punch and allows you to get a feel for their musical world without being overwhelmed by it or feeling like it goes on for too long. The band lineup on this record, we've got Daniel Svensson on electric guitar and vocals, Curtis Arsenault on bass and vocals, Aubrey Ellefson on keyboards and vocals, and Wyatt Gilson on drums and percussion. So a great lineup on this record. The album was co-produced by the band and one half of Crownland's Kevin Kamau, which is another fantastic Canadian band that's really making a mark in the music scene. So great to see these Canadian bands working together and helping each other and showcasing that incredible music is abundant in Canada. And this album was mixed by Terry Brown, who makes a lot of the classic Rush albums, so that's a big name to their credit here on this record. And like I said, you can expect some really cool funk grooves, some classic rock feel, and prog flourishes when they're needed throughout this track list. Some highlights for me: I love the opening track, You've Got Time, which begins with a big, bright prog instrumental before we get into that signature funky groove, which every track kind of has that moment. And maybe not every track, but most of the tracks have this kind of funk groove that sits right in the pocket. And maybe you could get fatigued from that if it's not really your favorite style. But I really love the funkiness. It's one of my favorite styles of music. So it always gives a hook to draw you into each track, to get excited about, to kind of bob your head along to. And it's just a fun characteristic that makes this band unique compared to the other modern prog bands that I listen to. Why Bother is another fantastic track here. Got some Queen flavor, some expressive harmony vocals, stabbing piano, fun bouncy rhythms, these kind of bright falsetto vocals. There's kind of a dreamier, more Beatles-esque quality to certain sections with a punk rock flair. Just a fantastic kind of power pop meets pop rock kind of track that I absolutely love on this record. Ice Cold was one of the first singles of the record, and it makes sense. This is where you get that signature funk and classic rock flavor, plenty of great hooks, that Zappa-esque feel to it. With some kind of zanier sections, a quicker pace, some short instrumental workouts throughout the piece that bring a bit of that prog flavor. Fantastic track that I really enjoy as well. Careful What You Wish For starts the second half of the record in fantastic, bombastic prog quality. Once again, you get that punk rock Queen-style feel with a bit of a Bohemian Rhapsody style keys. You get some Genesis feel later in the track as well. It's one of the most proggy tracks on the record, so of course it really speaks to me as something especially special. Everybody Loves a Scandal is really catchy. It has this cool harpsichord 70s style opening and definitely fits into the pocket of one of these really cool grooves. Catchy group vocal chorus that sticks in my head, a great earworm. And it still has moments of that kind of sprinkling of prog goodness throughout, especially the second half of the track. So it's a really fun, infectious, like groovy song that I think personifies the band and showcases something that I think a lot of people would really connect with. Catch Us If You Can is one of the proggier numbers on the record. Very proggy opening with expressive keys before we get their standard funk groove and some dramatic flair. Love the proggy instrumental sections here. This is where the band really goes off and showcases their virtuosity and, fantastic drumming and intricate keyboard work and great soaring guitars. And it's just fantastic, honestly. So I love how they marry this like proggy flavor, this instrumental chaos with this kind of funk backbone. And it really works for me. And Last Call provides a little bit of a breather before we get into the big finale, more of a slower paced, anthemic feel, AOR style, not as intricate and complex as the other tracks that have come before it, but I think it's a necessary one that could connect to a wider audience. And This Is Goodbye, gives your big bombastic prog closer with the dramatic ending and, all the kind of intricate instrumental stuff that they're known for in the fantastic funk grooves that accompany the piece. So it's just a really fun record to listen to. They're not trying to create some prog rock, conceptual masterwork here. It's just a fun record, 10 tracks that all are fun and hooky and have that funk edge to them that bring you into their aesthetic, but enough progressive rock complexity and different flavors on top of it to give you something to draw you back in, to uncover a little bit of those hidden layers that a lot of prog bands like to hide into their music. And so I'm really excited for this band and what their future holds. You know, they're somewhat of a younger band. They're still out and active. The fact that they turned around this new album so quickly after their previous one shows that they're hungry and wanting to put out a lot of music. And, you know, it's refreshing to see a band that has this organic kind of classic feel to them in a world where everything feels synthetic and AI and, you know, mainstream and pop driven. To get a band that just oozes this like infectious, you know, real human soul energy is just fantastic to behold. And I am very hopeful for them in the future that they will become even more popular in the scene, will make a name for themselves. Hopefully they'll become a part of this like prog community and maybe be involved in one of these like prog festivals. Something like Cruise to the Edge would be fantastic for them to bring them a wider following. But they've really risen in their ranks, risen in my ranks of like favorite prog bands over the last several months. I've been listening to their previous album, Camel, on repeat. It's been one of the most repeatable albums that I've heard the most over the last like 6 months or so. And this one's going to be in heavy rotation as well. Just fun music, a great aesthetic to them, just fun, don't take themselves too seriously, but they have serious chops at the same time. So really respect that, really appreciate the band, and I hope the best for them in their future, and that their next album will come out soon and be just as enjoyable and fun as this one. That's my hope, at least. So thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully you appreciate this review. If you haven't checked out the band yet, I hope this review has encouraged you to go check out their music and see what they're all about. And yeah, just come back here if you want more music recommendations. I have a lot more going on. There's a lot of records in April that have drawn my attention, and I'm definitely going to be doing a major April roundup of reviews that I think will be very interesting to you guys. So thank you guys, and I'll hopefully catch you guys in a future episode. Bye everybody, enjoy the music.